This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. I am so excited for today's show because one of my top bucket list guests is coming on today, Linda Purl. Yes, need I say more? The Linda Purl. Ashley Pfister from Happy Days, Charlene Matlock from Matlock, Nurse Sheila from Visiting Hours, one of my favorite slasher movies of all time. Oh my God, Cheryl in Jonathan Demme and Roger Corman's Crazy Mama celebrating its 50th anniversary. She is a multi-talented actress, singer, um, sourdough bread mogul now. Her and her partner, Patrick Duffy, have a sourdough bread called Duffy Dough. And she is a very talented jazz singer, and it's going to be an honor to talk with Linda today. I am just so excited. I cannot wait. And she has a show coming up February 10th through the 12th in Delray Beach, Florida, called This Could Be the Start. I'll find out a little bit more about that as well. And I am just so excited. This is the last show for winter, January. Let diverse February begin. I love the sound of that. Also, happy National Tickle Day. Tickle your friends, family members, loved ones. Sure, it can get annoying, but it's a tradition. Also, rest in peace, Marion Faithfull, singer, actress, ex-girlfriend of Mick Jagger. Sad. I won't even make a Mars bar joke out of this. Also, this Sunday, February 2nd, is the East Bay Comic Con. Go support Splat guests Miss Misery and John Stanley and meet legendary icons Michael Biehn and Tony Cox. Go get those posters signed. And finally, my heart goes out to the victims of that plane crash over the Potomac. My friend, my deepest condolences to the families of those victims. So yeah, here is my interview with Linda Purl. Hey Linda, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Very well. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yes, I can't tell you what an honor this is. I've been watching you all my life and I'm a huge fan, so thank you so much for
Oh,
coming on today.
well, I appreciate it.
So, I'd like to start by asking you first, I love your singing and your jazz music that you play. And I've heard you talk a lot about jazz in other interviews. But I'm curious, when you were growing up in the 60s, was there any pop music you liked?
Well, yes, there was. I grew up in Japan, and so
Hmm.
at that time, I mean, this is not the case at all now, but growing up then, we were at least a year behind what was popular in the States. So I loved MacArthur Park. That song was a
Oh,
thing I loved.
beautiful.
I loved Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Marvin Gaye.
Oh,
But my parents had a very active turntable, and so we had jazz on a lot of the time and classical, but mostly jazz, I would
yeah.
say. And so also in Japan, they had a huge and still do appetite for American singers. So Helen Merrill lived in Japan. She was married to a press guy out there, so she would come to the house, and Anita O'Day performed a lot in Japan, and so it was just kind of around, in
Yeah.
an odd sort of way.
Yeah. Do you remember seeing the Beatles on Ed Sullivan?
The Beatles came to Japan a little later, and of course, we didn't get TV, American TV out there. So, I mean, now I've seen them on YouTube and whatnot, but it wasn't the big event. And I would say also that they had their own big appetite for pop music in Japan, and I ended up recording there, which was really fun. for
Nice.
a while in my 20s, I guess.
Nice, nice. So, what is it about jazz that you prefer to sing?
Well, I love the fluidity of it, the emotion of it. It's funny because right now I'm trying to learn lines for a play I'm going to be doing later in the spring. It's a 64-page monologue. And next week I'll be doing some concerts in Florida. So during the day, I'm going back and forth between saying these lines of a beautifully written play, really just
Mm-hmm.
a powerful play, and the music. And I have to say, there's so much joy now that I'm having that direct, comparison in the course of the day. The joy that you feel in singing and singing jazz and
Mm-hmm.
listening to Ted Firth's charts. In this case, I'm singing along to a concert that Billy Stritch, incredible jazz pianist out of New York, Billy Stritch played, and so it's just you can't stop but a grin coming on your face. So I think the nuance of it, the freshness of it, the immediacy of it, and also getting to play as I'm so privileged to do with some of the very best musicians in the world, um, just infuse the whole experience. It infuses every molecule of your being.
Oh, that is so wonderful. Yeah. I mean, it's like the blues. It's very soulful and confessional in its lyrics. I mean, do you find that to be
Yeah,
so?
I do. And the two pianists that I work with most, I love that phrasing actually that you just mentioned. Actually, it's really, really right on and thought provoking.
Thank you.
Um, but I play largely with Ted Firth. But as I say, sometimes I'm lucky to play with Billy Stritch too if Ted is busy. And they're so sophisticated, and they, besides being incredible musicians, they're so attuned to the content of the lyric. They really echo the message of the song. It's not just pretty intricate nuanced music that they're playing. There's meaning behind every note they lay down. And I think because I started as an actress first and then music was really a second love, I appreciate that craftsmanship that they bring to it because they help tell the story of the song.
Absolutely. So when you were growing up in Japan, what was it like then, and what is it like now?
I mean, I'm certainly old enough now to have experienced cities changing, and we got to go back to Japan last spring for a month or so. I was doing a series of concerts there, and so it's sort of when you go, it's kind of a quantum travel. It's like going through your childhood, and I mean, just the physicality of Tokyo. Grew up in Tokyo. It has
Hmm.
changed so much. I mean, it's uber modern. Whole blocks are gone of villages and neighborhoods. The little village, the quaint village within Tokyo that I grew up in, is long gone. It's consumed with big skyscrapers and office buildings, and whole streets have been cannibalized and within the footprint of skyscrapers and apartment blocks.
Yeah.
But if you wander enough, you can get lost and find one of these holdout villages, and they, immediately all of that wave of childhood nostalgia comes back. I mean, Japan must be one of the most modern cities on the planet. It's so hip.
Hmm.
And one of the startling things about Japan is that its beautiful, ancient sense of clean design has now really been translated into the landscaping, the architecture, the lighting design, the artwork up around town, hotel lobbies
Hmm.
incorporate holograms. And I mean, for me, really it's kind of almost space age futuristic design that's absolutely thrilling because the Japanese ethos of simplicity and distillation is involved in many of it. So um, you I mean, I think the older Japan was so ingrained in me now when I recognize it in its more modern incarnation.
Hmm.
I mean, it stands on its own, but we feel those reverberations of things we recognize from childhood imagery. Um, I mean, it is such an international city. I When I grew up there, and my uh, the Japanese people at large did not speak English. Why would they?
Hmm.
But that is not at all the case now. And I did go back to my, not this trip, but a few years ago, I was also in Tokyo, and I went back to my old neighborhood, and it was such fun to walk down the street and
Hmm.
hear other languages being spoken. That just didn't happen growing up there. So I feel like, in the way that we all stand on the shoulders of our elders,
Hmm.
now that I'm in that age range, I feel like those little kids running, playing hopscotch on the street, or playing with their friends and speaking in French or speaking in English or Vietnamese, whatever their language was. I feel in some small way they're standing on our shoulders, because we were among the very first foreigners to be living there
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
post-war Japan.
Are you a sushi person?
I am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am too, and I also love tempura too.
Nice. Oh, sure. What's not to like? It's great.
Yeah. So I'm on YouTube the other night and I saw your Star Wars audition. I think that
Oh.
you did a fine job and I think you could have played Princess Leia. Were you disappointed? Were you disappointed you didn't get it?
Of course. I mean, as an actor or an actress, that's just part of the ride. You are serially disappointed. I mean, it just happens. It's an odds game. It's like musical chairs. You're gonna get some, you're not gonna get others. But I mean, Carrie Fisher was so perfect for that role, and clearly Spielberg saw qualities in her that I did not portray, and so it went to the right person.
Absolutely. I thought you did really good though. Did you also audition for Carrie?
I think I did. I mean, I think I did. I don't keep track of the things that I auditioned for. It's weird. There was one film that I didn't have a chance of getting, but I really wanted to do, which was Little Drummer Girl.
Oh
It
yeah.
ended up being, I had read the book and I just loved it in that role. And I've forgotten who, anyway, they did it as a big feature film, and that has not been my category, sadly. So I didn't, as I say, I didn't have a prayer of getting it, but that's the only one I think that I didn't get, where I thought, oh, I really wanted to have done that role.
Yeah. Can you believe it's been 50 years since Crazy Mama?
Yeah, it's a long time. It's funny because the play that I'm rehearsing now is also called Crazy Mama, and
Mm,
it has come about because Anson William, who I met 50 years ago, with when first on Happy Days, who's a dear friend, wonderful actor, wonderful
mm,
director. His wife has written a one woman play about an autobiographical account of when her mother had a psychotic break, tragically, when Sharon was just 8 years old. And now, with hindsight, she can now go back and look at the collateral damage and the trauma that caused, and the heartache for everyone. I mean, her mother and everyone around her. So, but it's called Crazy Mama, so it's sort of full circle in more ways than one.
did Cloris Leachman and Ann Southern like mentor you in any way?
Cloris, for sure. I mean, Cloris was just off of her Oscar win at that time, and she was she was one of the most original persons I've ever encountered. And when she passed, Donnie Most, who also has remained a long-term friend, we talked about how lucky we were to have worked with her dynamism and her extraordinary talent when we were just babies in the business. Because that was very impactful. Cloris Cloris was just a creative force and
Mm-hmm.
font. She was, I mean, she'd be the first to say that she was eccentric. There's no one like her. She had so much energy and so much to give. She was a giver. She did everything passionately. She ate lunch. She loved her kids. She loved her husband. She did her acting with passion. And Anne was mentored in a different way. I mean, she was from a different generation
Yeah.
and far more formal than Cloris, and so their dynamic was interesting to see. I'd say that they were both divas, and so there was some interesting energy that our fabulous director Jonathan Demme had to deal with. But Anne was very calm and wonderful. And I remember one time we were out in the middle of nowhere in some little tiny desert town shooting, and we had
Mm-hmm.
some extras, and I mean it was more of a ghost town than a town itself. And this sweet elderly man, old desert leather, cracked, wrinkled skin, came up to Anne, and he pulled from his wallet an autograph that she had given him years before, and it was all yellowed and almost faded by now. And Anne just said, well, let me give you a new autograph, and on the spot found a piece of paper and gave him a new autograph. And the glee in this man, and the fact that he had managed to be have an encounter with the great Anne Southern not once but twice in his life, it was such a sweet moment to witness, and to witness how gracious she was.
Yeah. I heard that Cloris had a body mouth. She did a lot of swearing.
She did, yeah, she did, but out of gusto, not out of, she just couldn't. They were appropriate. Some people swear and you just think, what? But not for Cloris. It was like, of course she had to. I mean, she
Yeah.
must have been an Italian in a past life or something.
Yeah. That's perfect. I'm Italian on my mom's side. I do a lot of swearing, I'll tell you. Brian England, who played Snake, he died way too soon. What was he like to work with?
Oh, Brian, yeah, that was, oh gosh. Well, he was a sweet person, and he was a musician. Honestly, it was so long ago, it's hard to remember. All of her children were so handsome, and a beautiful daughter, and talented. I mean, how could they not be? And bright, with those parents, with their father and with Cloris.
Yeah. Were you comfortable doing those quick shots of nudity in the movie?
Not at all.
Oh.
No, they were horrible. Yeah, I think some people, it doesn't cost them anything.
Hmm.
I don't. It's not for me.
Yeah.
And in another film, whatever it was, there was a nude shot, but I insisted on having a body double,
Hmm.
and so she did, and it was far more, explicit. But then when it shows, everybody assumes it's you, so I may as well have just done it
Yeah.
because they shot it so convincingly.
So when you get on Happy Days, they wanted a Linda Purl type, as I've heard you say. Um,
Mhm.
in the second season, you guys were shooting on what single camera, and then but when you come back by season 10, it's three camera in front of a live audience. Was the working conditions the same or different?
Very different. But what was absolutely was clear from the start of the show and remained so was the close knitness of that company, and that's because of Gary Marshall and Jerry Paris. I mean, that's just the tone that they sent. It was a family atmosphere. It was a tight, uh, group of wonderful, wonderful people, and I suppose, with there's just a different closeness with the crew. I mean, when you're shooting all day with the crew,
Hmm.
you're together all day. But then when it's a live performance and the crew, in their own way, with the cameras, movable cameras, are also doing a live performance. So I would say the whole experience is a bit more heightened. it's this hybrid of film and theater, and that your crew senses it too. Of course, we could go back and we could do pickup takes, but to be doing something together in the moment with a live audience creates a different kind of bond with your fellow actors and with your crew.
I was so lucky to interview Marion Ross 5 years ago. She is just a sweet, sweet lady. I mean, how great is
Yes.
she?
Yeah, wonderful. She's what a survivor, and yeah, I think when we were doing the show, I of course I loved her. Everyone did, but I didn't uh, recognize somehow or didn't think about how beautiful she was.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back now at those pictures of her, and she was a young woman, and she was a great beauty. And
Yeah.
so we just thought of her as mom, and you don't necessarily think of mom in terms of how beautiful they might be, but she was, and just a great sparkle, wonderful sense of humor, and a very strong woman.
Yeah, she's timeless beauty. I mean, she even is beautiful now, I think.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
And Anson, I've met him. He's a great guy. Uh, Jerry Paris, I did a tribute to him with his daughter a few years ago on here, and God, he directed
Oh.
like 200 out of 240 episodes of Happy Days. That's a lot.
Yeah, Jerry was extraordinary, and because he had been a performer himself, he really knew how to work with actors, and the he lived at some higher vibration than most of us. He was like plugged into a electric socket. He brought so much energy, and really set the baseline tone for all of us and put us all on the same page. And he was so experienced, and he knew the emotions of the moment, but he also had the technique. He knew timing like the back of his hand, and there was one of the many things I learned from him is that he said you always have to have a button at the end of the scene with comedy, something that caps it off. It's a look, it's a gesture, it's the closing of a door, it's whatever it is, but something that signals we're done with this part of the story and we're moving on. So there was nothing ambiguous about Jerry's directing, and so rare that one director would helm so much of one series, so
Mhm.
he had great continuity. He caused tremendous continuity in the show.
And he directed you and Donnie in a movie called Leo and Loree.
He did, and that was funny because we did that film twice. We did it once with Ron Howard, and Ron was, I guess he was still on Happy Days, but the show was initially intended to be Ron's show, but then nobody could have predicted this, but it was the character of Fonzie that really took off. And so Ron's role was being diminished, Henry's role was being written up more, and Ron was fine with it, but he was sort of, well, he said at the time he'd always wanted to move into directing, and this gave him the opportunity to morph into being a director a little earlier than he had planned. So as part of that, really an experiment, he had never directed before, and so he had a baseline story, and then Donnie and Ron and I would get together and we would improv, and they would write a script, and eventually a, a screenwriter, I think his name was Jim Hill, came in and cleaned up our improvs,
Hmm.
and then we just started shooting. We started shooting it on the weekend in my apartment and Ron's home, and in parks, and Ron's parents, who I adored, were the crew, and well, we were all the crew. Everybody just kind of pitching in and making sandwiches and getting on with it. But it was Ron's debut as a feature filmmaker, and then I don't know, somebody got busy. Maybe it was time for Happy Days to start up again, and we couldn't film as much. So the film never got completed, although it was most of it was done. but now Ron started to shop it around and did get a deal with United Artists.
Mm-hmm.
But now, when by the time all of that had happened, Ron was working on something else. Maybe it was the John Wayne movie. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so he produced it, and we started from scratch, and Jerry Paris directed it.
Wow.
So it was a long, and I think we have the distinction, hopefully no longer, but for the longest time we were the all-time box office low for United Artists.
Wow. I don't know if that's an
Sadly.
I don't know if that's an honor or a dishonor.
I know, yeah. Yeah, really both, I guess.
You played a disabled girl in two movies I love, Like Normal People and The High Country. I myself am disabled. I have Asperger's, ADD, and a learning disorder that doesn't have a proper name. I spent 10 years in special ed in school, and I thank you for representing my people. I'm curious, did
Oh,
you do any like extensive research in preparation for those roles?
oh my. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that about yourself.
Of course.
Sean and I were extremely lucky. We the Like Normal People was based on a true couple, and so we
Hmm.
got to spend a lot of time with them, and not with her, but with his family, with Roger's parents. And gosh, they were such wonderful people. And it was, oftentimes people will say, "What's your favorite project?" And that was, if I had to choose, that would be it, because of the privilege of being with them. And Roger and Virginia remained friends for years. I've now lost touch with them, but they were they were so pure and so brave, and love was their motivating force. And they, with the support of his parents and brother, changed laws. They just would dare to ask the question, well, why can't we be in this school? Why can't we partake in this? Why can't we have our own apartment? Why can't we get married? And with that gentle question and then insistence that was fueled by love, they they changed things. And it was a kind of bravery I had never imagined, really,
Hmm.
and seen in action. Um, so they never doubted. I mean, maybe they must have had, doubt must have entered at some point, but there was a certainty, an unfailing certainty that they would go forward. And indeed they did. They got married, they lived independently, they worked, they got their educations. I mean, it's extraordinary, extraordinary lives. And then because of what they did, it paved the way for so many other people.
Hmm.
And so, oops, I'm burning rice on the stove. Sorry, hang
It's
on.
okay.
They darn it, they um they led by example,
Yeah.
you
I,
know.
I think that
So,
I think that you and Sean Cassidy were so great together. You both should have gotten Emmy nominations.
oh, thank you. Well, I had not known Sean before doing that show, and boy, I'm just so filled with admiration for who he was and who he is.
Hmm. Yeah, very talented family, of course, he comes from. The high country is very underrated. What was it like filming in Canada? Was that the first time you were there?
It was the first time I was in that part of Canada, and I it was breathtaking. There was a very impactful person on that show for me called Bruno Engler. Bruno was in early 70s at the time. He was a mountaineer, and he was our technical advisor for this. So because I was up there, I don't know, however many weeks early to take mountain climbing classes, um, rock climbing and whatnot. Um, oh, you'll be pleased to know the rice is not badly burned. Oh,
Good.
God, sorry. Jeez. Um, um, I mean, this is part of the joy of being an actor and actress. You meet these interesting people and you get pulled into these other universes. And that was an extremely informative time. I remember Bruno. our first class, we stood at the base of this huge granite slab that looked, for all intents and purposes, perpendicular to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "We're going to rope up and we're going to climb this thing." And he said, "I want you to keep in mind always that when Tenzing Sherpa and Hillary got to the top of Everest, um, Hillary planted the New Zealand flag. I mean, I'm sure it didn't stay there very long because of the winds, but anyway, he planted it. And he said Tenzing Sherpa took from his pouch a little bit of food to leave on the mountain to thank the mountain gods for safe passage. And he said, for all he knew, that was food that would save his life on the way down. As you know now, I mean, fortunately, they both came down safely.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, you always want to be in that position of humility to the mountain. You will never conquer the mountain. Just stay humble, and that will keep you safe. And
Oh.
he was that kind of teacher. You know, he taught you how to rock climb, but there were so many life lessons along the way. Um,
Yeah.
and that scenery, I mean, my family has some roots in Colorado, so the Colorado Rockies were not foreign to me. So I hadn't imagined the Canadian Rockies, which are twice as grand as the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
So the whole thing it really opened an ongoing chapter in my life.
That's so beautiful. Then you went back to Canada and you made one of my favorite horror movies, Visiting Hours.
Oh,
Uh,
how funny. Yeah, visiting hours. And where was it? In
what's that?
Montreal.
I think that was Quebec.
Yeah, oh, that was fun. To work with Lee Grant was, that was great. Michael Ironside, and it was
Shatner.
so that was 1980. How are you? It's unbelievable. And that was among the first films made up there when Canada had created great tax incentives for people to come up there and make movies. So, of course, they had a very robust, especially Montreal, they had wonderful film business. So they had terrific, wonderful French director and terrific crew, all French speaking. And well, I fell in love with Montreal. I mean, what a great city!
Mm-hmm.
Great city for jazz.
Oh yeah, I heard they got the Montreal Jazz Festival over there.
You bet.
Lenore Zand, I've had her on. She's great. She's a politician now up in Canada. What was she like to work with?
I don't remember. Isn't that awful? But how great that she moved into being something more useful than an actor and actress.
Yeah. When you had your death scene, were you glad later that you didn't have to be covered in blood? He just gave you an extra belly button with that stabbing in the gut.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember when I saw the film, it was just horrible to see that knife, going in. And I'm a scaredy pants when it comes to horror movies. I cannot watch them. I have no. I mean, I don't think I'll ever recover from having seen Jaws. So I'm glad people enjoy them. They are not for me. I'm just too much of a wimp.
I always say I have no problem with actors not being horror fans, but I have problems with filmmakers not being horror fans because it shows in the work.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the first time I ever saw you was in Spies, Lies, and Naked Thighs. That must have been a load of laughs with those three.
Oh, it was. I'm so glad. Gosh, I that was such a fun thing to do, and Ed Begley remains a friend to this day. And yeah, that it really was. We howled and laughed, and I wished it had done better than it did because I thought it was a good film.
Well, it got a kind of a cult thing because after it aired on CBS in 1988, it got reran a lot. I saw it throughout my whole life on cable at some point.
Oh, I'm so glad to know. Oh, well, that's good. Yay for us. Yay.
Yeah, so it didn't do too bad. And
Okay.
You looked so pretty with your hair curled like it was, and I have to say you're great at comedy, playing the annoyed housewife who hates Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was the comedy hair look. This seemed the way to go.
And you had James Frawley directing. He was an actor studio guy, so
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
wonderful. Whole thing was fun.
Yeah, I mean you've worked with so many great geniuses. Another genius you worked with was Christopher Guest on an episode of Trying Times.
You bet. Christopher, who sadly lost his house in the fire in LA,
I heard.
he and his wife. Yeah, gosh, that's just unbelievable. We've actually now just stopped counting how many friends or acquaintances have lost their houses. We were evacuated ourselves for 8 days, and but
Yeah.
thanks to the winds changed and slowed down by the time we were sort of in the northeast corner of the Palisades fire. By the time it had grown to there, the winds died down. So finally, the helicopters and the fixed wing could fly and drop retardant in water. And that was one of the things, I mean, that
Hmm.
I can't imagine what it must have been like for those pilots, sitting there knowing they could get ready to go, but
Yeah.
the helicopters could not fly. I mean, the winds were over 100-mile-an-hour gusts, and besides not being able to fly, it's impossible to drop in that wind because it's blowing this way and that way. Who knows where the water retardant is going to go? Anyway, what a extraordinary time, and the rebuilding process, as so many communities for various reasons has experienced. Now it's Los Angeles's turn, and somehow this is very different from the earthquake that was whenever that was in 95 or 93, and it
94.
was 94. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I mean, what a terrible time, but and yet somehow it was over. I mean, we had aftershocks. I guess a few months later we had a 5 point something or other on Mother's Day, but um, somehow the fact that this was ongoing and was affecting so many different communities at the same time, and you didn't know what the end of it was, or what the extent of it was, and seeing the heroic efforts of the first responders and the correspondence, the coordination efforts between police, National Guard, and the firefighters from all over, from Canada, from Mexico, from 9 different states. I mean,
Yeah.
it's it, I, the I can't imagine the war room for that effort. The governor and our mayor and so many people, the best brains you could hope for, figuring this out in real time, and nothing could have prepared us. Nothing could have stopped it. This was, it's what we're up against now with climate change. Not us, but everyone. So we, have to ready ourselves to the extent that we can, and hope we survive, and then rebuild as you can.
Yeah, I lived in Reading for 6 years, and we had pretty bad fires up there. They've gotten worse since I left, and
Sure.
we got evacuated this one weekend, and oh my God, the skies were so red, and it burned my lungs so much. I think that's why I have a lung infection today. It's just, oh my God, it was horrendous.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I can only imagine.
Yeah, but you and Patrick Duffy have a sourdough bread called Duffy dough. Is that right?
Well, we do, and it started with a recipe that had been in Patrick's family for many years, and we just at this point you want to be making a difference where you can. So all of we were selling a dehydrated version of this online. Now we've stopped selling now, and then we're going to be rebooting early next summer. We're sort of coming out with new products, but we had to stop selling in order to re-coordinate and restructure the company, and we'll be coming out. But the all of our proceeds go to our net profits go to food scarcity charities. So We hope now in this new incarnation that we've earned our way to being a bigger company when we relaunch. And it's been great fun to do together. It's been a learning curve. Neither one of us have a business cell in our brain, but we're learning, and that's really fun to do at this point.
Is sourdough your favorite bread?
You bet. Yeah, yeah, it is without a doubt. Yeah, I'm a complete convert. And there's so many, I mean, now that we entered into that world, realize there's so much to it. There's apparently sourdough, the industry is growing at 12% a year. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, people have been turned on to it, and there's so many wonderful choices, and ours is too. So we hope when we relaunch that folks will check us out.
I know you talk about this a lot, but having Lucy and Desi for in-laws back in the day, that must have been just a roller coaster ride.
Well, again, I think having grown up in Japan,
Hmm.
I mean, of course, I knew about the show, but I had never watched it, and so I was kind of coming in fresh to the scenario, and it was
Hmm.
so many years after their tremendous fame and careers. They were retired by the time I got to know them, and well, they were just wonderful people. I don't believe ever fell out of love with each other. They loved each other fiercely.
I know, and we got all those great reruns to watch forever and see it. They were just two
You
very
bet.
talented people.
You bet. You bet. Incredible. Incredible.
Are you going to write a memoir?
No, I struggle over thank you notes. I do write a blog, although I've been very lazy about it. And it's just sort of snapshots of different experiences here and there, and I do enjoy to do that. Actually, I lie. I did write. Patrick and I got to do a tour in England for about 7 months, and it was so much fun, and it was such a wild ride. We were moving to a new theater once a week, and we'd come back from the theater, and things would have happened, and I just thought I have to write this down because we'll never believe that it actually happened unless I write it down. So I did write that journal, and I might publish that at some point, but that's about it.
Yeah. So February 10th through the 12th, you'll be at Delray Beach, Florida. The show is called This Could Be the Start. And then March 16th, you'll be at the Catalina Jazz Club in LA. And I imagine you're pretty excited for these upcoming shows.
You bet I am. I This set is our most ambitious so far, and yes, I'm really looking forward to both of those.
That is so wonderful. Real quick, today is National Tickle Day, which is an internet holiday. And I was curious, are you ticklish? If so, where?
Pretty much everywhere, but I've learned that if you touch the person who's tickling you,
Hmm.
weirdly, the tickle immediately stops. They can carry on tickling, but it won't tickle you. It's the weirdest thing. Try it sometime. To all those who are ticklish,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
es- especially useful for little brothers and little sisters to know when their older siblings are sitting on top of them, tickling them.
yeah, because I think tickling is an endearing bond between loved ones.
True that. That's true. Very true.
Yes, I'm very ticklish. Linda, this has been a tremendous honor. Thank you so much for coming on
Oh,
today.
thank you, Tommy. Thank you for your thoughtfulness, your preparedness, and your insights, and for doing what you do.
My pleasure. Dreams really do come true, and I have to say, you are still gorgeous, and you always will be.
Oh, thank you, Tommy. You make a girl feel good. Take good care.
You too. Have a great rest of
All
your
right,
day.
dear. You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Well, there you have it. Linda Purl. Ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God. I loved every moment of that conversation. She is fantastic. I am just so honored that we got to talk. And she had no problem telling me she was ticklish. That was so fantastic. And she didn't burn the rice. I mean, she is a Renaissance woman. And yeah, go check out her shows. The one at Delray Beach in Florida. And of course, the Catalina Jazz Club in LA and go buy her bread. And yeah, Linda Purl, she is such a talented lady. And wow, this may be like on my list of one of the greats ever of all the interviews I've done so far. I love it. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.